Neil is the Senior Manager for Generation at the Mount Coffee hydropower plant. Next to him is Mr. Thomas Gondawan. He is the Executive Director for Transmission and Distribution. And on my right is Mr. Dele Shubayo, who is the Executive Director for Engineering and Major Connections. And as you know, I'm the acting CEO, Head of Management currently. Thank you.
Thank you. So you see the entire Senate for this not plenary, this for the committee of the whole. All the senators attend this meeting. So on my far left is Senator Dayton Tiaye, Chair of the Committee on Public Operations, and near me is Senator Taylor, Senator Taylor, Chair of the Committee on Land, Mines, Energy, Natural Resources, and Environment. So they will conduct the hearings today. So, Senator Secretary, please read the letter we sent to them, and then we start.
Secretary, Senate, 32608, 22 RL, August 22, 2022. Honorable Moni Aro Captain, Chairman of the Board and Head of Management, Liberia Electricity Corporation, Monrovia, Liberia. Dear Mr. Chairman, I present my compliments and the Director of the Liberia Senate in special session. Apprise you that great concerns have been raised by members of the Senate regarding your last appearance before the Senate as a committee of the whole to explain happenings at the corporation, the submission of a report to plenary on the state of the LEC, the management services contract, and the corporation standing as a state utility. The matter having been brought before the plenary of the Senate again, this body will have me to cite you to reappear for the Senate as a committee of the whole on Thursday, August 25 at 1 p.m. in the Senate chamber. The Liberia Senate will have me to also inform you to come along with all relevant documents requested before the committee of the whole, where there will be inquiries on the present situation relative to 1, state of the current LEC post-management contract, the ESBI, 2, current state of the unit that got burned at Mount Coffee, and 3, current structure of the LEC management. It is important to note that appearance and briefing will give members of the Senate an opportunity in making decisions from an informed position. Please accept the review assurances of my highest consideration and esteem. Kind regards, sincerely yours, J. Nabola F. Senior Senior, BBA, MPA, Secretary of the Senate.
Colleagues, we have heard the reading of the letter that requested the witness to be here. So at this time, we ask the witness to respond to the committee of the whole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gender imbalance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our team are delighted to be here with you today and to have an opportunity to respond directly to the questions that have been raised in the letter from the Liberian Senate. Regarding the current state of LEC post management contract, the contract between LEC and ESBI International came to an end. It expired on January 20th, 2022, at which time they ceased to exercise fiduciary control of LEC and turned over management to local management of LEC. Part of the contract between LEC and ESBI International was a provision that allowed for the development of a senior management resource pool, which basically included senior managers that underwent counterpart training with ESBI counterparts. They did that for about a year, and then 6 months of transition working together they underwent. The selection of the counterpart teams went through a rigorous competitive vetting process, which at the end of the process was forwarded to the board, which approved and recommended to the president. The president also approved the selection of the directors that were counterparts that would replace the ESBI management. So at the end of ESBI tenure, I can say to you that most of the Liberian counterpart management team members had already been exercising the responsibility and functions of the offices that they assumed at the end of the transition period. So they had already assumed a lot of the authority and were doing the work themselves. What was missing during the selection process was an agreement on a CEO to fill in one of the counterpart positions. And as a result, when the contract expired, we did not have a counterpart CEO for the president to appoint at the time. So the board, in its wisdom, met and decided that pending the president's appointment of a CEO, that the chairman of the board would assume the head of management pending the president's appointment of a CEO. That followed also by a letter from the president mandating the CEO, the chairman, to serve in that position pending the finalization of the selection. So that's how I became head of the management team currently. The team has been operating now since July 20th, and I can say that the management team has performed very well. Some of the tasks that have been carried out were quite impressive, and one of them, I should say, was that we had a major situation with one of the turbines at Mount Coffee. Unit 2 started to experience leakage in the turbine pit, and our crew, all Liberians, were able to take the turbine offline, and within 4 days repaired it and put it back online, and it's now operating normally. And this was without any assistance of any expats. These were all our local team. The team was headed by a young electrical engineer, Isaac Brown, who is a graduate of the University of Liberia. So we're very pleased to be able to report that to you all. We don't clap here. So, Concerning the second question regarding the Unit 1, the turbine at Mount Coffee that was damaged. That turbine was damaged because the coils in the stator actually burned. And to repair it would require the manufacturing of new coils. The cost of the repair of that Unit 1 is around $4 million. For the past 2 years, we have been negotiating, LEC has been negotiating with the insurance company because all of those equipments are insured. But the insurance company have been quite delaying us, going back and forth, doing inspections, doing surveys, doing studies. And in the meanwhile, we are losing the use of an important component at Mount Coffee, which is basically 25% of the installed capacity of Mount Coffee. So we engaged the World Bank with the view that we should go ahead and start repairing this unit pending the outcome of the insurance claims. I'm pleased to inform you that the World Bank has approved the $4 million financing for the repair of this unit. Unfortunately, it will take us some time to get it repaired. The period to manufacture the coils is 11 months. So we can have all of the $4 million, but we have to wait until the coils are manufactured. And one of the reasons it's taking long is that there is a general challenge with the international supply chain, global supply chain. And so we have to get a slot in a factory that manufactures these coils. And they have to source the copper on the global market, mirror exchange market, to manufacture these. So all of this takes a while. So the manufacturer have told us that it will take 11 months to supply us the coils, and then another 6 months for the actual installation, testing, and commissioning. So we're somewhere close to about 1.5 years away from getting Unit 1 back online. But at least currently we do have the financing available, and it is being done through a World Bank procurement process. I must also say that it will give us an opportunity for our team to work with the manufacturers in repairing Unit 1, giving them further capacity, training, and I think it's a worthwhile exercise. In addition to that, we have secured the support of USAID to put in protection systems for the remaining 3 units so that we do not have an occurrence of what happened to Unit 1 occur to the remaining 3 units. That financing support is estimated at about $600,000 that USAID will be giving to us as a grant. They will be doing direct contracting, so the contract between the supplier will be between the supplier and USAID directly. So we are advanced on that. I think the third question, I think I answered that. The current structure of the LEC management, I answered that in discussing the first question in terms of where we are with the management structure. But we have a full Liberian team that is managing LEC right now. And they've all been confirmed by the president. With the exception of the CEO, the entire management team is not subject to Senate confirmation under the chief executive of the company. So that has already been, so those directors who are in the operational positions are already confirmed by them. So if I can go on to the next, it's not here, but I think a critical issue that has been raised is, and it actually sits at the top of the agenda for the entire management team at LEC and the administration, and that is, what are we doing to ensure that we do not have a repeat of the past dry season? And that is, for us, our #1 concern. We cannot go back into a situation where there's massive load shedding and there's no available electricity to share with the public. So in addressing that, management has taken several measures, but to put into context where we are, during the dry season, LEC was only distributing somewhere around 12 to 14 megawatts of power into the system. This is against an average daily demand of 40 megawatts and a peak demand of about 60 or 56 megawatts. So you can imagine we're meeting somewhere even less than 25% of the demand of our market. So what are we doing? The first thing that we decided to do is to conclude the power purchase agreement with Côte d'Ivoire, which will bring in 27 megawatts of electricity to Liberia. I visited Côte d'Ivoire already, met with the CI Energy team and the CEO and Transco, which will be transmitting the electricity over their transmission lines. We held the discussions and we are now very close to finalizing the PPA. The only outstanding issues regards the entry into force requirements, which are financial. And I've been working very closely with the Ministry of Finance, thanks to the Honorable Legislature for the passage of the budget that now allows us to access resources that can meet the entry into force requirements under the power purchase agreement. So we are close, and I think that within a month and a half, we should have the power purchase agreement finalized with Côte d'Ivoire, and we should have access to 27 megawatts of power from Côte d'Ivoire. And so if you look at it in context, we were distributing 12 to 14. From Côte d'Ivoire alone, we'll be getting 27. So if you add the 12 and 14 to that, we're already significantly better than where we were. But that's not all. The second stage of our efforts to ensure that we address the dry season situation is to ensure that all of our generation assets at Bushrock are all in working condition and available. Most of the generators there are 7, 8 years old. They've been running continuously, they missed service, so they're in bad condition. So we are now undertaking the repairs and maintenance of all of those generators to have them in full availability status. So we have 10 megawatts of generators supplied by the World Bank. Those are all available right now. They're ready to operate. The challenge with those 4 generators of 10 megawatts, they use diesel. And with the consumption level, we're talking about thousands of dollars a day to run them. So we have to move towards the HFO plants. Now we have 2 HFO plants that were supplied through JICA, the Japanese Development Agency. Those 2 plants, we currently have a team in country right now that are doing the 8,000 hours maintenance work. We have 25 LEC staff working with them, and 25 might sound like a lot, but one of these generators is bigger than this entire room. It can be 2, 3 stories of this. So we have 25 team members working with them, and by the end of November, not the end, the beginning of November, I met the Japanese team. They have promised us that those generators will be ready and functional. So we'll have another 10 more megawatts, and these will use HFO, which is a fuel that is a lot more affordable than using diesel generators. The second set of generators we have are 2 9-megawatt generators. They are Wärtsilä brands that was actually purchased by the government of Liberia. These are the largest units we have, 18 megawatts of HFO generation capacity. Those are due for the 12,000 hour service. And it will cost us close to about $1.8 million to undertake that service. We have to bring in a lot of spare parts. We have to bring in an expat team from the factory to do that. We are currently going through a procurement process to procure all of the spare parts and to sign a contract with the manufacturer to begin that maintenance. We expect that sometime in October, we will have the team here from Helsinki, Finland, and they will start working with our team. And by December, we should have the first unit ready. And by January, the second unit ready. So in total, we have installed capacity of 38 megawatts at Bushra. We have 27 coming from Côte d'Ivoire. And then Mount Coffee itself will be able to also contribute, but at a very minimal level during the dry season. One of the advantages that Mount Coffee provides us is that in the dry season, when you don't have sufficient water, we actually close the gates at the spillway to allow the water to build up during the day. Then at night, we run one of the turbines, and that turbine provides peak support for our generation load. So we're currently trying to implement all of these so that we have a better situation than what we had before. Another major challenge we have is that after we solve, or at least we mitigate most of the risk with generation, is the transmission and distribution. That is the lines coming to your homes, the transformers, meters, and all of that. I had a meeting with the entire T&D team 2 days ago at Bushra, and they're developing now an emergency maintenance plan that will be delivered on Friday to us, that we will start looking at how we implement it to optimize the performance of the transmission and distribution network. And one of the reasons we've had a bit of instability on the network is that we are still constructing the network. Right now, we have to turn off power from like 9 to 5 alternate days in different communities to allow the contractors to complete some of the work they're doing. We are running new 66 kV lines from Capital to Painesville, and you cannot work on those lines if you energize them. So we have to turn them off. So there are planned outages that we have to implement to complete these works. So we anticipate, according to the contractors and our team, that these works will be completed by the end of September. If that happens, then a lot of the planned outages that you all experience every other day should cease, or at least go to a very minimal level. We do have challenges because as we work, we're adding and adding and adding customers. We anticipate by the end of this year, we have over 200,000 customers connected onto the grid. And the scope, the geographical scope of the grid will also expand significantly. So it's no longer just dealing with Monrovia, across the bridge, Congo Town. Now we're going as far as Wela. We're hitting Robertsport, Pearl River, Tottenburg, and by December, we should be at Roberts International Airport by the end of December. That project has been challenged by the road condition, by the weather. So a lot of our towers we've been constructing, it has not been easy to put them up. But we are working against schedule, against time to get these done. So we are doing a lot. We're making a lot of efforts on the commercial side. Our team has been trying to clear a backlog. We've had backlogs from 2018 of people who requested service that we've been trying to clear, and there are thousands of customers. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine called me the other day and said, I applied 2 years for LEC. I was shocked somebody called me and told me they're ready to come and connect me. But that's the effort our team is making to make sure we get as much of this backlog cleared up. And it takes a lot of resources, a lot of logistics, but we all have to work together. Our biggest challenge is being able to realize the revenue for the electricity we generate. With all the effort we're doing, if we generate 40 megawatt of power, we expect that we get a reasonable percentage of that back in revenue. But that has been very difficult because of a lot of illegal connections and power theft in the network. There are many reasons. One of the principal reasons that people complain about is the lack of meters. But you'll be surprised to know that most of the meters we installed in the bombing corridor recently, the customers have started bypassing those meters already. Along is the corridor. It goes. So one of the ways that we are trying to deal with this is we have a community engagement team that is actually engaging the various communities. Because what we are telling them is that when we have these illegal connections, we tend to overload our transformers because nobody calculates the capacity of the transformer when they're connecting onto it, except for LEC. So when you blow a transformer, it's not a light bulb that you can replace for $2, $3. You're blowing something that is going to cost thousands of dollars to replace. So the only way we can save that is to get the community directly involved in protecting these assets. And I must say, we have some communities now that are so advanced. Even LEC crew, when they get there, they don't allow them to climb the pole. They tell them, show us your work order, show us your ID card. And this is really, I think, will be the most successful way to do this. There's no way LEC can take thousands of people, go to court and say we're going to power theft court and try to solve this problem. You know, if they blow a transformer, there's no power. When there's no power theft. But that's not the objective we're all working towards. When I headed the Millennium Challenge Compact, we did an economic constraints analysis. And what that constraints analysis informed us was that power was the #1 constraint to development and economic growth in Liberia. So it's a must if Liberia must develop. It's a must if we must go beyond our current state. It's not a luxury. It's a requirement for development. So we have to work together. LEC might not have all the resources, and we're very happy that the government is stepping up to the plate and really making it possible for LEC to bring affordable electricity to Liberia. So we are working very hard to achieve these goals. We count on your support. We intend as the team to submit quarterly reports on the progress of what we are doing and provide the kind of narrative that can inform you. We do understand that as direct representatives of the people, one of the first questions they will ask you is about the status of electricity in the various communities. And we have to all work together to ensure that we can achieve those goals. With that, I want to end and ask if any of my colleagues at the table would like to add to what I've said. Thank you.
It's going to be former foreign minister. Yeah.
So, colleagues, with all the witnesses, and it's about time that we give our colleagues the chance on the floor to ask you some questions.
But they said it okay.
They said they're okay. Yeah. So if you have a concern or question, you can ask.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to ask who.
The country that line your question to which thank you.
So that raise your hand, but you can have your hands up. Yeah, we taking note. Susan, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the witness, let me say thank you. And I'm happy that the protest Liberians are taking over now. And I want to believe the knowledge the expert brought will acquire them. And so we can use it for the benefit of our country. So I want to say to you, congratulations. And we will expect a lot from you. And we think you can make it. I believe you can make it. It doesn't matter putting time and effort. Yeah, like Jungle and the power of my country. So I just want to say thank you. I mean, I listened to you. I think we are on course. We need to give the benefit of the doubt. to see what happens between now to December. During the draft, when you pass the test in the draft, then at least we know that on the issue of power tap, like you really started, it will work with the community. And to the extent that if the power is available, like getting meter and the public state bypassing the meter, I think you sanction that particular house to pay certain fine before they are connected, or they should not get power if they cannot pay that fine. To do that, you will get people to start, if there were renters in the house, other people will start paying attention. So you're going to get the community involved, if possible. Every community leader, if there were 100 houses entitled to one transformer, if it's possible, let people meet the 100 houses and say this transformer is for 100 of you. And if 100 of you allow anybody to overload this transformer, it gets destroyed, it will take us time to bring it or you will suffer. So anyone seeing it should make a call, and there should be people to take the call. And most of your LEC people are the people that are carrying on this connection. So if it's possible, there be a policy that any community that LEC people are going into to do connection, the community chair or the next in line must maybe sign something to show that the community people are aware, LEC is aware. I think when we do that, we can. So I trust your ability, Mr. Captain. I think you can make it, and I want to rest here and see what happens between now to the draft. But we're praying for Liberia to take over. I think we can make it as a country and as a people. I also want you to look into the privatization of the distribution. It will help you because, and you know it, I can't explain it to you. If you put Mozzarella or Monrovia, or let's say Mozzarella as a county, assuming you put it into 20 blocks and let people manage it, private people. For private people to manage it, you also create some Liberian millionaires, which is good for the country. And so people can come together and form a company and manage this sector, this area. So area 1, you got maybe 5,000 homes. Company X manages this area. The power you're taking from Man Coffee accounts in, you know the calculation of your power. So this guy meter, you got one big meter. This meter is on company X. At the end of the month, LEC bill company L based on the reading of this meter. So if company X allow all the 5,000 homes to steal all the current, it's not your business. All you know, read the meter and let them pay for what is on your meter. And save you the headache. So if I own company X, I will have to deploy all the techniques and whatsoever to make sure that nobody steals the power. Because the power you steal, I will pay for it as a company. When you do that and focus more on generation, you save yourself all the headache. LEC will make more money. LEC will start to contribute to the budget because people pay GST on purchasing a current. That's a big industry, that's big money, and I think we can create a millionaires. The electricity will be stable. It will take the headache off you, and you focus more on generating power. So let me give you the benefit of that. I wish you well, and God bless you as you go about your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Toba, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I'm Henry Tokwas, another Bon County. You're back. Oh boy. So, how do you work? Okay, thank you. Mr. Captain, thank you for your great expose. You were very eloquent. About 2-3 years ago, we had the occasion of meeting with the management. Of course, I think they were all experts. They outlined before us a plan to increase the hydropower to the extent that they said that it will reach a point that we will be selling electricity even to Sierra Leone and other countries beyond. The plan that they told us about included linking the Bear River to the Simple River through a channel of the canals or whatever. And that will save the cost of purchasing generators, fuel, and all of that. And the ones that we have here right now will only be used for emergency in case one of the turbines is down and it has to be repaired. I want to know, how far are we? Are you considering that, or that plan has been scrapped? That's my question.
Thank you. Honorable Senator, that plan actually was a plan that started, that discussions started almost, I would say 15 years ago. I remember when the former Minister of Mines and Energy, Eugene Shannon, chaired a committee of the government to look at exploring that possibility. And the reason why this plan came about was because the structure of our hydro is a run-of-the-river hydro. And so we don't have the storage capacity to store water over a protracted period. So the solution was build a reservoir where you have the convergence of the Via River and the Simple River. And you store water there, and during the dry season, you can release the water as you need it to have year-round operation of the turbines at Mount Coffee. And the plan also included adding additional hydro plants along the Simple River. It's sort of a cascade of hydros. There are two major challenges with achieving this goal. Of course, the first is the cost. At the time, the cost was estimated around $800 million to construct the Via Reservoir. By now, it's somewhere around $1 billion to construct it. The second constraint has to do with the environmental impact. To build a reservoir like that, the area that has been selected would require basically uprooting a couple hundred acres of prime forest in Bond County, and the displacement of the and the displacement of local communities. Most of the organizations or multilateral financial institutions that would be the prime candidates to finance such an operation have certain environmental social impact requirements. And if a project doesn't meet those requirements, they will not provide financing. And then you have to look for private financing. But then you also have to deal with the environmental groups as well as you do that, including our own environmental laws. So there is a feasibility study, an initial preliminary feasibility study that was done. And I think it's worthwhile pursuing a more full, robust feasibility study that answers the questions that we don't have clear, definitive answers for. So is there really a strong enough environmental risk that would cancel out such a project? We need to be more definitive about that. Also, what are the options or variations of the Via Reservoir that could probably bring the cost down or optimize the project as a whole? those studies need to be done. And I don't think we can abandon that idea. It is something that's worthwhile looking into because the potential of the Simcoe River is significant. If we have a reservoir, we can get 600 megawatts of power on the Simcoe River easily, if we have a reservoir. And then with that, we can become a net exporter of power in the sub-region. But that's basically where we are.
Thank you.
So we last Senator Zabo, please.
Again, let me just thank you. You know when you started, and then you talk about the young library engineer, and you saw our fellow senator, we sort of start clapping. We have that's good library engineer, young library engineer. Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Captain. Having said this, and we're so glad to see library managers, and we think you should take the challenge because all eyes are on you, and many of us here pray for this day. You make reference to, and I'm not a technical question, so you make reference to water turbine, then spoil or destroy, and then you need almost 12 months, 6 months for manufacturing it, and now 6 months for installing it, operationalizing it. You talk about the lesson learned. I mean, I think you need to expand on it so that you can have us to feel a little bit comfortable. Because we said that, we say, hey, but all of us say 12 months, what do we need to do to avoid the reoccurrence? Even if they occur, what do we do to remedy it? That is one. The next thing, you made reference to the backlog of cases since 2018. And then at the time, you were not in charge. We had a labyrinth technical team in charge, rather the expatriate. Now they're in laboratory. We know it, we know the terrain. You're there now. So I hope the backlog of cases from 2018 will not repeat itself. Then let me then end up. Though the Commissioner for Transmission and Distribution, you don't want to call the Commissioner name, you want to call your name, because everyone thinks you got on the block. The issue of transmission and distribution is a challenge. Every time we all call it the expatriate here, transmission and distribution became the top issue of concern to us. Let me just end this. My name is Stephen Jacob Amonza. I'm from local country. Why does local country, my country stands on this? Thank you.
This time.
Thank you, Honorable. On the first turbine, I think you were asking about lessons learned. One of the reasons we've had a back and forth with the insurance company is that no one has been able to ascertain the exact cause of the burning of the stator. And because of that, the insurance company have tried to use that as an excuse not to pay the claim. So we had to hire an independent assessor to give a report, at least a clear report to say that this was no fault of management with respect to undertaking the required maintenance of the system, which we obtained. There are a lot of speculations, and I wouldn't want to go into speculations as to what happened, but it definitely was not a fault of LEC as the operator of the system. But we have also learned that you can put into place additional measures that will protect the system from a similar thing happening. And it is those measures that we are now putting into place to prevent what happened to Unit 1 from occurring to any of the other units. And I must say that I also have to be careful what I say with regard to this, because it's still the subject of an insurance claim that anyone can use what I say against the case that we have pending. On the question of connections, I have Delhi here, that's his area. So I'll ask him to say something on that. And then on the transmission, Tom can say something. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Okay, on the area of connections, we had some legacy requests for connection dating back to 2018. So what we try to do, because we have a lot of requests, require a lot of logistics to have these meters installed, we'll be able to separate the different records, reach out to the applicants through phone calls, and try to get these meters installed. So far, we'll be able to clear most of the backlog, all the backlog for 2019, and we have done about 60% of 2020. We got 2021 backlog pending. We'll be able to do about 30%. It's a very tedious exercise because it requires vehicle, it requires manpower, but we are on course to at least clear most of the backlogs in the shortest possible time. So when we clear the backlogs, we hope that this will not occur again. Some of the reasons for the backlog include the COVID crisis, when we have some issue with supply of meters. What we've done now, we've ensured that in the coming months, we receive some supply, some batches of meters that will ensure that we have continuous supply and we can service all these requests as they come. So we're making a lot of effort in that regard, and we hope that by the turn of the year, we can regularize activities with regard to metering. Thank you.
I would like to add to that one of the things I've instructed our team to do is to come up with an expression of interest to identify 2 or 3 authorized importers of meters, so that the private sector with the specifications from LEC can import meters, and the meters can then be available locally for purchase and not 100% dependent on LEC purchasing that. So we're in the process of trying to make sure that we can do that, and we have 2 or 3 certified vendors to bring in meters.
Oh, no. Well, the president depends on this.
No, we're not.
End of my question. Please.
Please answer to his question.
Yeah. But before then, there is one for the local issue, the transmission distribution man. Because when he introduced everybody, So after he then to you now, where the local country, man country of 8 ethnicity, where do we stand to benefit? Where are we on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Is that 2027?
Honorable Senator, thank you for that concern of the issues of local county. Well, we address the issue of Liberia. So, as you are aware that Liberia is a part of the West African power pool, and the CEO just spoke of the CLSG line coming from Ivory Coast into Liberia, into Sierra Leone, and into Guinea. And that line passes through Bong County. Today we have developed the national transmission layout that will cover the entire Liberia. The substation of Botota from the CLSG line will be connected to a substation into Banga. There will be a line from Banga to Zozo and a substation into Zozo. There will be a line from Zozo to Vanjama. And those 2 substations will serve that of Lofa County. There will be a line from Botota to Tapeta, with another substation there. From Tapeta, there will be a line from Tapeta to Zredru. From Zredru, there will be a line to Fishtown. A line from Zredru to Sino, Greenville. A line from Sino to Sester City. And from Sester City back to Buchanan, which closes the loop and it will be connected to that of the Morovia grade. There's also a line will be developed from the Buchanan substation to the RIA substation. That covers all of the country. Now, what we are doing now is to establish the financing, the cost of each of all of these lines. And then we establish the timeline based on the funding, based on all of that will be coming in. So our transmission line will now cover the entire country. And once you get a transmission line covered in the entire country, you can now move with the distribution into the various areas. So what is cardinal here is the funding. We at our end will do all the engineering and do all the timeline and do all of the studies, and then we look forward to the funding. And once that funding comes, all of these timelines will be spelled out to you, and we can assure you that the country will be covered with electricity.
Thank you. Follow-up question. Can we proceed to please align the gentleman. We're soon getting back in. Gentlemen, you what is it? What are you again? We just listened to the now we did are covering the whole country, responding to the local question. And we went through talking about rain and other places. There's a question because these lines you're talking about just don't come, they have to be income poles. Okay? Now, I didn't hear much first about Cape Mount, we talk about Cape Mount, and second, about Grand Crew. These are areas that are not here about, so I didn't want to give you the chance. Secondly, or thirdly, River G is already covered, and I think that is extending to Grand here. Okay, from Grand here to River G. Which are we coming like electricity? But we just want to let us know one timetable are we working with, since we are on the distribution question. What timetable are we working with? And when we post that in the foundation of the areas.
Timelines are all funding. Once you get the funding, you establish the timeline. And for your questions, you said that Grand Crew was level low. You see, when you look at a substation into an area, that substation distribution extends into 2 or 3 counties. So the transmission substation we are telling you about will extend from one county to another. It is those substations at a critical point that covers the various counties. We were also talking about Bakolo. Presently we have a substation into Clay. That substation will be driving into Tottenham. And from Tottenham substation you can feed the whole Bakolo area. We did the circumference of the voltage length to cover those areas. So at those substations, you have a distribution line that will cover all of the areas surrounding them. So one substation might be covering 2 to 3 counties in that location.
Well, when it comes to Sano and Lofa, maybe 5 years.
How long, like I said, how long is depending on funding. For our own engineering wise and that, we are saying that if the funding is available, then we can schedule what we need to do.
So, check
I'd just like to add to that. I think what Thomas presented is sort of master plan of the transmission backbone for the country. But that transmission backbone is then broken into more detailed distribution networks that go into these various areas that we're asking questions about. Now, what we need to have first at LEC is a national master plan. Once we have that national master plan, that we determine all of the specifications of that plan, the next step is to ensure that we do a costing. What would it cost to roll out this master plan? And based on that, once we have the costing now, then it's a question of sourcing, financing, and budgeting to be able to implement the national master plan. But irrespective of this master plan, we're also trying to leapfrog by having smaller sources of generation in more remote areas. So currently, for instance, there is a plan under the European Union to have a mini hydro and a solar project in Sino. In Lofa, there are several mini hydro projects. So in parallel with developing the long-term plan that we are developing, there are ways that we can also intervene in some of the more remote areas, because when you're rolling out a transmission backbone, it's sort of you have to follow the link. You can't jump from here and go over there. You have to continue it. So that's how it's rolling out. And one of the reasons that you can say Bumi and Cape Town are beneficiaries is really the proximity to the national grid as it is now. So as you expand it, you're going out. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Senator Capel from Johnson to Philip. Capel from Johnson to
Thank you.
I thought you said that was me.
Thank you, Presiding. Thank you, colleagues. Let me say thank you to the management team for the information that you provided. I think what you said today, to a large extent, clarifies some of the doubts. And I think it will be good, Mr. Captain, if we can have no keynotes. Because as we go back to our constituencies, just this morning I was on the radio in the Kenya and people were concerned about what happened to electricity. And so it will be good if we have no keynotes, so it will help us. But my concern amidst the splendid report that you're giving us is the issue with the LEC workers. I've always said to my driver, when there's a problem with a car, it has to be a mechanic. When you take it to one garage, the other garage contains the work of the other garage. But most of the time, I see LEC workers in the community. Most time they do the connection and they facilitate to a large extent some of what you call theft in the community. Sometimes they do it in good faith. When you are disconnected or you're having problem with your electricity and they come and provide assistance, it's good on that end. But sometimes they facilitate other acts that I think you need to be very rigid about, because this is something in the community management team, community going from house to house collecting money so that the LEC personnel, quote unquote, will come and perform a service. Either to replace the meter, they take the meter and they carry it and they say they want to try it whether it can be fixed or it need to be changed. And so to take it from the community to go and have it tested, you pay some money. I have paid money on some occasions in my community. And then when they carry it and come back and say it's not good, and then you start to ride, you know, to be able to pay for a new transmitter. Transformer, right. When the transformer comes, the community is not sensitized about how many customers or community members can benefit. And so the same quote-unquote LEC workers start to hook everybody on. By the time you notice it, they are out of overload that
and then later on you found out that it developed another problem. And so it appears that we start paying the regular LEC bills or prepaid bills, community are collecting money by the day to facilitate quote-unquote LEC workers' request. That's something that please want management to look into that. My next concern has to do with when LEC, when it comes to publicity about what you do, like you provide some key information to us. I wonder whether there's a radio program or there's a way at which your management can explain some of this happening and some of the progress, some of the challenges to the public or to the customer. Because these information are vital for us, equally so for the rest of the customers that we serve. I think it will be important if you don't already have to develop a process that you communicate back to the customers as it relates to the challenges, the progress, and some of the things you intend to do. I think that would help to create to break the communication gap, thus allowing customers to understand what they need to do. I don't know, but there was some group of people came here and they said there's a possibility to track theft. I think there are devices they talk about here that you can place it either on a line or whatever, so when somebody tap on that line, there will be an alarm. I think we need to research on that if it is possible to reduce theft. Let's look for the different options and possibilities that we can explore on theft. But one of the key things I noticed from my experiences, I think availability, affordability is also reduces theft. Because many people want current. Once we can make it available, like some of the strategy you're talking about, I think when people have current and it is affordable and it's available, I don't think many people want to get any theft thing. But if you see your neighbor having it, and the process of registration at LEC, I'm glad that you're clearing the backlash. Because the process there, even when you are disconnected, quote unquote, wrongly, you have to send ANICA, you have to go through the process. I think once we fast track those processes, it will help us to be able to really get to what we want to get. But other than that, I want to say thank you thus far to this Liberian team. And I think the great plans, if we implement it, no one can do it for all by ourselves. And I think we're on track. My last question will be, Basel, where I come from. I understand that by December, the deficit will be around RIA. You know RIA, there's a stone throw to Grand Bassa County. When will Bassa, Buchanan City, and Grand Bassa County particularly to get into this cycle of connections?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. I think you raised some very important points, and starting with LEC workers. We all know that the customer has no ability to climb on a pole and connect themselves. There is a facilitator. And from our experience, there are 3 categories of persons that we find that are doing that. The first will be an LEC employee. The second is a former LEC employee, and probably one that has been fired for doing those kind of things. And the third one is a contractor. All of the T&D development that's going on, these companies hire local people that actually implement, and then they use that experience to engage in these illegal connections. We've arrested several of them. I think one of the most frustrating things that we have gone through, and I said to my team, I'm not interested in chasing every small house around here that's illegally connected. I'm more interested in those who are facilitating the connection. But you'll be surprised how difficult it is to prosecute anybody I think the power theft law as it is, for me, is not practical enough. It doesn't work. And I'll say why. Power theft has been classified as a second-degree felony, which means that to prosecute, first of all, the state takes the lead. They are the ones who prosecute criminal offenses. A second-degree felony requires a grand jury indictment. Imagine me taking everybody through a grand jury indictment. And if we do get an indictment, then we have to go through a trial. And then you have another jury. We've just gone through a case that lasted a year and a half for one of our employees. A security guy who was climbing pools had the phone in his house, meters, climbing shoe, everything you needed. All the fruits of the crime were there. We're 1.5 years to prosecute him, only for the jury to throw the case out in the face of preponderance of evidence. So, how do we deal with that? And for me, the question is, and just the cost of legal services to achieve that, and what is the return you get? So, is it efficient enough to use that system? So it really leaves me with an option where, rather than going to court, just on a constant, regular basis, engage in massive disconnections until people realize that it's easier to go and try to get a legal connection than to keep dealing with people who are taking money from me every day. So
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
your answer very brief.
Yes, sir.
Because there are a lot of senators that want to say something. Please.
Okay, thank you. So on the next question about communication, it's a gap we identified, and we are trying to work on that right now. We have launched a new website, and if you go on that website, you'll be surprised how it's such a big improvement over the last one we had. Now you can search any employee. So if you have a doubt about somebody who says they're LEC employee, even from your telephone, you can go and search an employee. You see the person picture, name, and so forth. Okay. On the question of testing the system, which is we are actually going to be launching very soon a pilot project with a private company that claims that they are able to reduce power theft through their technology. So we're launching a one-year project very soon. The contract came to my office today for review. So very soon we'll be trying it out and see how it works. On the question of BASA, what I can say to you is that the distribution network for BASA is being financed under an EU project that was actually given to the rural RREA to manage, along with the National Authorizing Office under the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. So basically what I'm saying to you is that LEC is out and was taken out of the distribution of Buchanan. And RREA now is the one that they gave it to, they're the lead, and they're managing that along with the National Authorizing Office. I personally had meetings with them, with all of the key stakeholders, and I said to them that I think this approach is the wrong approach. First of all, Buchanan is not rural, okay? It's a city, and the unfortunate thing about it is that when we signed the PPA, by December, we will have electricity ready to go to ArcelorMittal and the port, but we have no jurisdiction over Buchanan City. So I think there is a need to engage the key stakeholders in government that are managing that process. Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Hello, you have the floor.
Mr.
Captain, I'll follow you up on that.
But I will only follow you. The law is the law.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. After saying that, Mr. Captain and your team, let me state that it is on the strength of my communication. You always speak before me again, you my time. Okay, because like you know,
as a senator speak, they will give.
But I spoke as
It
is
that right? It's not right.
Yes, I agree with you. Okay. It is on the strength of my communication, followed up by several communications from Senator Yongi Kanga to this body that the management of LEC is here. And when you made the presentation earlier, I was asking myself, why do we call the management here? But as we went into some details, I thought to ask some questions to clarify some doubt. I must state on the record here that my first time seeing Mr. Tom Gongawan, I've spoken to him on the phone several times. I want to say thank you for intervening in my community. I was part of LEC for about 3 months because the transformer was down, and he intervened, and so my community has current. I want to say thank you, and he was very professional. As far as I know, they didn't give him a dime. Okay, so, but...
And you know what you can have with light. You want to have with light.
Okay, so let me flow. I will take the answer back. Mr. Captain, one of the issues in our communication for me, for which you are here, is for us to do probity, good governance. I know you, the captain I know, believes strongly too that it is not in good practice for you to be acting as CEO and sitting as chairman of the board. Because the CEO will report to the board, if I got it right. And if you are acting as CEO and you chairman of the board, then who reporting to who? So I know it is within the province of the president to nominate the CEO for legislative consideration. I hope you can intervene so that that process can be can speed up. I understand that it is the board's decision to have you act as CEO pending the decision or action by the president. I'd just like to admonish you to encourage the president so that that aspect can be done. You've answered basically all of the concerns addressed in my communication. So, 2 questions. It will appear to me that everything we're doing in this country, even including when we want to do stimulus package, when we shop on salary, World Bank or IMF that will intervene. When it comes to revenue generation, we're looking for $4 million to do our program, if I got it right. We're looking for a World Bank to give us $4 million. You look at that, is LEC generating money? Two, can we do anything? Is there any technology? Is there any technology that's available to protect meter? Maybe the meter protection can also help to reduce power theft. Because if I purchase my meter and you steal that meter and you can't use it, nobody wants the meter. But if you can take my meter, or if I can steal somebody's meter and I can use it, there will be meter theft all over the place. And most times, people who steal the meter are people who knowledgeable about the meter, the LEC records, most times. My final concern, the hard rates are weapons, correct?
Thank God, the CEO,
yeah. And you see what happened? The hydro is a weapon, and weapons is in Arlington, right? Harrisburg, where the weapon and where the hydro is. Because Captain, I know it's been there long before you took over. They got to put the system on. And Harrisburg in Monterey, they play the hardware, power coming from there. Harrisburg ain't get power. Chill. They play the hardware. I want to talk here so my people in Harrisburg can understand what I mean. They play the hardware. They place power coming from. That place didn't get power. Maybe I may be wrong. It has never had power. How come? Lastly, I will never advise any administration, including government, to think it is too expensive, costly, and time-wasting to prosecute for crimes. Sometimes it's not the plethora or number of prosecutions, but it is the prosecution of one successfully to set a deterrent to others. Somebody may steal $1 and you may require $1 million to prosecute them. Not because you want to recover that $1, but you want to set a precedent for a deterrent for precedent, so another person will see that when you steal $1, no matter what happens, they will go after you, and this is what happens when you do that. If there were 5 persons who wanted to steal $1, 3 will get carried. Prosecution does not stop commission of crime. Strong laws on the book don't necessarily stop the commission of crime. Just before the legislature acted, and it is law in other places, when you commit murder, you will die. People still committing murder. On our laws, when you commit rape, it's not bailable. People still committing rape. So I don't care how we make the law harsher, there will be commission of the crime. But if we prosecute successfully, no matter how small the amount is, it will serve as deterrent. So let's not be discouraged on prosecution. The legislature did its work to make power theft a criminal offense. Don't get discouraged about it. Prosecute successfully, so that somebody can say, if you do this, this is what will happen. Some people say necessary evil when certain things happen. Most of the reason why people are doing power theft. Excuse me, sir. I got time. You want time me or time off? Thank you. LEC is the reason people stealing current. It may see LEC wire passing over your house to another man's house. And he not ask for LEC meter, he not ask for power, he not ask for power. And you can't come. Somebody go there and join a wire. It is wrong. We should not allow it. We should not encourage it by giving justification. And that's what I wanted to say. You want to consider prioritizing the distribution. And trust me, like Senator Kuhn said, it will relieve LEC hugely. It will improve and increase the number of hospitals or businesses accessing power. Why you should be focused on more to increase the capacity is transmission. And I rest.
Thank you, Senator. I know several of the comments you made that did not require a response. And I will go directly to the ones that were direct questions. Regarding the governance issue, I note your point, and it's an executive action that is required, that is beyond my control. But I would like to assure this body that the operation of the board of directors of LEC is one where the entire board has to approve decisions that are made. It is not one person. When resolutions are passed, it is through a vote of the board of directors. And I think the board has very strong statutory members on it, including the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Mines and Energy, and other private members of the board. So I just want to assure you that the LEC board is not a board that someone can easily manipulate or use as a rubber stamp. But we take your concern and we note your recommendation.
Mr. Witness, the question is, are you chairing the board and you serving as?
Yeah, answer.
Senator Brown, would you still respond?
Yeah, I think regarding the meter you asked about, if there's any, all of the new meters we have deployed can be disabled remotely. If anyone reports a stolen meter, LEC can sit at our headquarters and disable that meter and you cannot use it. So we have adopted that that technology also. We also have a high security meter that we use for large customers. And those high security meters, they even have video cameras and all that record anything you try to do with it. We've already caught 2 large companies trying to tamper with it, and we are now on their case trying to deal with it. So we are trying to pursue that. On the Harrisburg issue, I should just say one, that where Mount Coffee is, we're generating electricity and dispatching it at the 66 high voltage level to Painesville and to Bushrod, and from there we send it to other substations and distribute. So to give Harrisburg electricity, we have to come from Bushrod back to another substation or run a line to come to Harrisburg. So, so I just want to say it's not intentional that LEC will generate electricity right in Harrisburg and leave the Harrisburg people out. As a matter of fact, our engineering department is right now trying to deal with that problem and solve it.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Oh,
yeah. Yes, it is a very important question. LEC is generating revenue, but the operational cost of LEC is extremely high. And imagine, we have 830 employees that I met. And Tom here is asking me for 76 more. And the reason he's asking me for 76 more because he has brand new substations about to come online. There's one at RIA, there's one at Shufflin, there's the one at Clay, Virginia. All of them require 3 shifts of operators that include engineers. So, and as the grid gets bigger and more service calls come in, we have to respond. And our employees are unionized. I met them with a collective bargaining agreement. I will not underestimate if I say the benefit package is quite superior to most public corporations. But I met it, and it's an agreement that I can undo. But yes, we are earning revenue, but it doesn't cover our cost of operation. I don't want to be the one to respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And let me say thanks to the management team for the appearance and the presentations they have made. I sat here and listened, and I see that the atmosphere we've had before, when the ESBI team appeared so many times, the atmosphere has changed. We've had so many appearances from the LEC, and I think, colleagues, the first point I want to go to, some other people cover it briefly, but I want to emphasize it. There are 2 areas that we spoke about when we discussed LEC. Power generation. We believe that is the primary responsibility of the LEC. They should do that. Then we talk about power distribution. We see here where the problem has been. Because when we got reports from the former management team, we always saw from their presentations, they have produced so much energy that they were not able to distribute. And so we have consensus on the floor around this. We have said that LEC should concentrate on power generation and outsource the distribution. I mean, I thought that should be one of the key points here that we'll be discussing. We all agree, we know that. We don't have the capacity. We need private investment in the sector. We need that. I listened to I didn't see you want to invite some private companies to supply meters. That's not sufficient. That whole aspect of power distribution, we must outsource it. We have to solve. The LEC should focus on the generation. You should do that. We don't have the capacity. We all know that. We don't have the funding. I listened to one of the men in the management team when people say when it depends on funding. Of course, everything here depends on funding. So to save us, and there's a huge demand for power out there. And so we have said, let LEC concentrate on the generation and ask for private investors to do the distribution. That will save the government, it will save LEC. All the issue about you going to go for power theft, it will not be a responsibility. It will be in the hands of those who distribute the power. This issue of looking for funding to buy lines, meters, it's not a responsibility. It will be the responsibility of those who are invested in this sector. So let's make a decision, LEC. You need to disengage from this other aspect and focus on generation. The second issue I want to go to is your exit strategy and execution at the project management. The contract with the ESBI was a project. I believe in that project it was enshrined the exit strategy. Eventually, when the so-called experts leave, what do we, and it's turned over to the labyrinth team, how do we do that? I want confirmation whether we are satisfied with the manner in which they have exited. Will there not be issues that will point us tomorrow to say, oh, this problem has come about because these people have left? So, Mr. CEO, are we confident that the exit of SBI and the taking over of the labyrinth team, are we confident that we can go on? Lastly is, I want to speak specifically about Maryland County. And I want to be grateful to the government, particularly LEC, for the supply of power to my county. And so, but for a very long time, even before this government came to power, we've been discussing how the power in Maryland is managed. The distribution, the same thing we're talking about here. But we haven't gone in, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we did not get anywhere until I received this communication from citizens in the county that a team from LEC went there a few weeks ago and announced that one Emmanuel Lawrence had been awarded a contract. That raised some concerns in the county. And as a senator, they wrote a caucus. And so when you're coming, I thought we made it as one of my issues. I want you to clarify what is the status of the current management, the power management in Maryland County? Has it been given out, or is LEC, or we are in the process of doing that, so at least I can inform the people to remain calm. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to start from the question raised about Maryland County.
Yeah.
Maryland County has not been given to Emmanuel Lawrence. Okay. That story is not correct at all. LEC put out a tender notice similar to what we did for Nimba County with Jungle Power for an operator to operate Maryland and Grand Julian. The tender process went through. I think there were 4 or 5 companies that bid it, and there was one company that was successful. That company is still in negotiation with LEC to finalize a franchise agreement. That agreement has to be approved by the regulator, the terms and conditions of it. And once we have completed that, it will go to the board of directors of LEC for approval. But I can assure you that it's not Emmanuel Lawrence. It's an international firm. Okay. So, but one of the things I would like to emphasize is that the potential operator has already expressed concerns about operating in Maryland. And that is because of the hostility that even LEC has experienced and they have heard of. We tried to install meters on transformers to, the last time I was here, I think the Senate was concerned about us validating the consumption of power from Cote d'Ivoire. And as we tried to install those meters to do that, our staff were attacked with machetes and they basically had to run out of Maryland County. And this information has trickled down to the potential investors, and they are very concerned about the impact on them coming into Liberia and trying to do this. So we at LEC are trying to engage members of the Maryland Legislative Caucus to see how we can get the support and have more engagement with the local community, because at the end of the day, it will be to the benefit of the residents of Maryland. And as you know, Senator, the voltage coming into Maryland is very low.
Right.
And to bring it up to an acceptable level will require investment. And this is something that any potential operator will be one of the first things they will have to do, is to invest in the line coming from Cote d'Ivoire to ensure that the voltage level is at par with what's required. So that's the situation with regard to Maryland. We're hoping within the next 2 months we can conclude all of those arrangements, because as we speak, the debt is accruing on the cross-border. When we made the budget and gave it to the government, we had a balance of 10.5 million. It's now 11.8. They were just a management team. And one of the things they did, and constantly did, was to present the shareholders, which was the government of Liberia, with business plans that required capitalization. And most of the time, the government was not in a position to capitalize these business plans. And so they used that as a condition for not achieving some of the KPIs that they were required to achieve. That the shareholder was not investing into the company for them to achieve the goals that were set. But I can say to you that I'm pretty comfortable, because the team has really been running LEC. They have been at the top giving instructions, but the groundwork, our team has been doing it. And you can see, I mean, they've been out since July 20th. Okay, we're coming to the end of August, and if anything, I think you'll notice a difference that's more positive. And I've encouraged all of our team members to take ownership. I've said to them that you are Liberians, everybody's looking at you. I don't want a situation where tomorrow anybody goes and say, oh, when they turn it over to the Liberians, they messed it up. No. We have to show that we are capable and even can do a better job. And so I've tasked all of the managers to operate under those conditions. On generation distribution, we are working on that. The whole Maryland venture is part of that plan. We're looking at other areas. Monrovia is very complicated. When you cut Monrovia into distribution units and give them to private companies, the challenge is, if those companies do not pay, what do we do? Do we disconnect the entire community? And these are people who may have money on their meters, may have purchased the electricity. And what if we give it to someone who tomorrow realizes they can't make any money and they damage their assets we turn over to them? Because when you turn over a community in Liberia, you're actually turning over your critical assets to them. And there has to be a certain care taken of those assets, certain way that they manage it to certain standards. So what I'm seeing is we're not against it, but there's a lot of due diligence that has to go into it before we finalize that.
Thank you, Mr. Seo. On the Maryland issue, I want to assure you that if you work along with us, some of the challenges you will have there will be minimized. So I encourage you to keep us in the know, and we will work along with you so that we can have, the team can have a smooth working atmosphere in the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is my checking business.
So we have announced, please, Senator Adiko. Commonly known as TH.
Okay. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I want to join colleagues that commended Honorable Captain. He is a gentleman that I've been knowing for long. So I know he will do his best. Some of my concerns have been already highlighted by some colleagues. The issue that the management of LEC really needs to know is that
the development of our country is depending on a sector that is one of the factors. When you talk about road, you talk about electricity, and the example is areas where there are roads and electricity in the country can attest to that. So electricity is very key. So for us that are at the remotest part of the country, my interest is that counties that are closer to us, the treatment given to them, the attention given to them, to me, will also lead to how we can get another as well. May I know, I think Senator Kape's question was not the way I wanted it to be answered, so I may ask it in another way. The 23 megawatts that you talk about is the connection of the Buchanan contingent on that, because I see that plant set up by Buchanan and been there. So if we talk about December and we're talking about the 23 megawatts from Africa, if it doesn't come, does it mean that Buchanan will not be connected? Number two is, you just talked about Maryland. Our interest in how the setup in Maryland and River G are consolidated is very key. Because when those counties that are currently being accorded asset to electricity are consolidated, are split, and theirs is succeeding, I think Green Crew, that means is on the way. In the absence of that, ours will be very low. You talk about acquiring or in negotiation with an entity that is again foreign. We want you to really do a thorough investigation, because the example in Lima that is being given to a Liberian is succeeding. So as you unfold these processes, please take into consideration forging a partnership again that will not be providing solution. The issue of electricity is very key, and those of us that are far off are looking up to how our neighboring counties will be treated so that we can be according the same situation. So how they set up in River G and Maryland, the consolidation of it, and then whether the connection of Grand Bassa, specifically Buchanan, is contingent on that 23 megawatts that you talked about. These are my concerns. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, it's at the phone now, so we need to be straight to the point. And colleagues, please, if you have the opportunity, just go straight to your concern or ask a question, because it's not moving. So,
Senator, regarding the question. Senator, regarding your question with respect to Buchanan, the substation in Buchanan has power already. It's not contingent on what we buy from Cote d'Ivoire, and that substation does not belong to LEC or the government of Nigeria. It belongs to a company called Transco. Transco is the transmission company that when you buy power from anyone within the 4 countries, it's their transmission line, you transport the power through. So when you transporting it, you pay them for the use of their substation and their transmission lines. So there is power in that substation, but it doesn't belong to us. It goes to Buchanan when we buy from Ivory Coast and we use the transmission line of the CLSG, and we pay for it. So we pay for both the power and the transmission fee. So I don't know if that answers the question of Buchanan.
Yes. So that means even if we get what we are expecting from La Côte d'Ivoire, if we don't pay for DS, then of course it will still not be used to connect the canal.
No, what we buy from Côte d'Ivoire, we bring it to Liberia and we distribute it through our network. So we can distribute from Buchanan, we can use the substation Buchanan to distribute to Buchanan City. But the problem with Buchanan City right now is it does not have a distribution network. So we have nowhere to send the power to distribute into Buchanan.
So, Wizard, please. I will follow her. Senator Banning, I will do in the leadership.
Chairman,
Chairman,
colleagues, the management of LEC, I have one concern. The concern is about the connection of the wiring system in the country. Like for example, last week, our keke ball was passing when the wire dropped on the keke. The person died instantly. So I think when we are talking about connection, LEC, we need a power ball. The life comes first before the power. So you people should be very careful of doing the connection and sometimes to be watching the wiring system. Sometimes it can be done well and it damages lives. So that's my advice to the management. And another thing, we are talking about connection outside Monrovia. What about Broadville? Closer to Monrovia, we don't have current. What do you think is the reason? That's my question.
Thank you, Senator. With respect to safety, it's one of the most important things for any electricity company, even for our employees. The case you referred to was that a medium voltage line was cut as a result of the heavy rains and thunderstorm. And the keke driver came and didn't realize, I guess, that it was live and rolled over it, and that's how it got electrocuted. Our team went there immediately, isolated the line, turned off the power, and was able to repair it. But this was a result of an accident from a heavy storm. And this is something that will happen now and then. We have to continue to carry out due diligence, make sure that we properly maintain all of our lines. But sometimes there are some things that you really have no control over. It's a regrettable situation, and we have to learn from that and continue taking clear measures to prevent this from happening again. With regard to Brewerville is under one of the projects we call the LEC project. Phase 1 of that project has already been completed. That's why there are some homes in Virginia that have been connected. LEC Part 2 will cover the rest of Virginia. That is scheduled for next year. Again, let me say that this is, you see, we're dealing with, I just want to clarify, it's not a question of our decision, it's a question of rolling out the financing program, a project under the World Bank. So if the World Bank does not provide the funding to implement the project, LEC can't do anything about it.
Well, when I'm talking about Broadway, right to Hotel Road, now Hotel now, Rehefi, that's the area we are talking about. And on the other side, they have current. They have the LEC, we are talking about next year.
Senator, in the planning of these projects, when it was done the World Bank did not provide for 100% connection of all entities. There were, and numbers change. If they are projected 10,000 customers to be connected, by the time we got through all of the World Bank processes, it's 2 years later, that 10,000 has changed to maybe 15,000. And so there are gaps, and this is what we're coming back now to correct all of the gaps in the project to make sure that we have full densification with regard to connections.
All right, but when you are talking about theft, I'm going to do some theft. Because my neighbor can be having theft, I mean, current rent. I will not steal the current, we will do some theft.
Senator, I'm appealing to you, and the reason I'm appealing to you is that if we do that, we will blow out the transformers and nobody will have power.
So we went, Senator,
so the senator is not going to see. She's still reporting that you take
I'll take current.
You will just take it.
Senator, we said, please, I just want to follow up to the...
Same last year.
To petrol one and
No, Chairman, I just want to small follow up with the Senator question.
To petrol one and
Yeah. Mr. CEO, I just want to find out, I listened to my colleague from Bapolu.
Yeah.
She spoke about the keke boy that got killed by LEC electric wire. So who handled the funeral service? Is it LEC or the family? Because it's one of your wires that killed you.
My answer is that my lawyer will not allow me to answer that question, but I think LEC is concerned about people's life and safety, and it's a responsible corporation to do something.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, presiding, I want to join those who express deep appreciation to the
whole community.
To the management. I think all of you know that. I guess I'm the real ambassador for LEC here. I worked in LEC as a manager, and some of the problems we're talking about.
Which year?
You were not born that time, so don't worry. Anyway, and I know that Liberians manage the company. I was the manager there, and some are very old now. They're still hanging, but still sharing their experiences. If we continue to call on them, they will be as helpful. But I think Mr. Captain and the team have started to do very well. Why? First is because I think Mr. Captain has exceptional group management skills. He's not an engineer, but because of good management skills, he's been able to get the managers to work. We had these Europeans here, and I remember interacting with them. Some of them came to my house, and I made a point to them that they were not managing the thing. First of all, the quality of people that came did not have the skills. They just happened to be, they won a contract. No, this is true. And therefore, the way they performed manifested that. Now, having said that about what we have now, I know occasionally one of the most difficult persons to get, because he doesn't keep a good smile, because he's busy, is Tom. You see, not that something wrong with him, but he's so busy many times to answer and get it done, it can be difficult because of the pressure. I want to know, why is the president appointing, or did I hear it right? That the president is appointing managers or directors? Because I think it would be the CEO, and how the matter of appointing managers or CEO, I did not hear it right. I hope I did not. That the matter reached to the president.
For all the time that I've known LEC, that I've worked there, there are decisions made by the management, and there are levels that reach to the board. So I hope that is corrected, or that my ears did not work very well on this time. The other thing is whether there are any political influences in the distribution. I know that around the elections of Senator DeLon, during that election, people were going into communities and say John Brown, who was a candidate, will bring them power. I want to know whether there are political influences in the distributions of power. And Tom, you should be able to say that. Do we have political influences in the appointment of your management? Now, we've had issues. We are asking many questions about how this place should be managed. And sometimes I think some of the questions are matters that come to the legislature. Now, what does the law say is the mandate of the LEC? Who does what? Is this distribution part of the new question being raised? Is it something that it should be management decision? Or does it require change in the law on LEC? I think it will be very important. Power theft and power availability are linked. We asked the management team, even when we did not have power in Dupo Road, the gentleman came, an Irish gentleman came, and was talking about power theft. There was power theft going on in the place there. That's what the problem was. I told them, in Ireland, whether people can steal power there, you know, so we now know that if we have power available and properly distributed, I will not be hearing for power theft. We had power theft those days when we ran LEC. But it wasn't the way. You stole power in West Point because the power line passed over West Point to go to other people. So the government took a decision that we must give power to LEC, the LEC power to West Point people. And the more power we gave them, the less the power theft in West Point. You know, so, I mean, out of frustration, we heard our senator saying, okay, then I myself will go steal power. Of course, she can pay for power, so why would she go take power? Because there's a question of needs. We have to put in a lot of time ensuring this issue of distribution. But I want to thank you all from what you're saying. You're helping us to understand the issues. I think Tom will smile a little bit more. The more things happen, you know, the better it will be for all of us. Let me thank you again for the work you're doing. We hope that the question is settled quickly as to who is the CEO and the chairman of the board. And the chairman of the board, that we have the separation. And so we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Quickly answer a question regarding the appointments. Because the management service contract had a transition structure in place, and the process of selecting the members of the transition and who would take over, it was the process that was communicated to the president that this is how we're going to go about doing it, so that we move from a contractual management to a local management. So that communication came from the board and went to the president, and basically outlined the process, the selection process, the vetting process, those who were selected, their profiles, and so forth. But they did not receive appointment letters per se from the president. It was a board that appointed in the absence of having a local management. So it was basically minus a Liberian management, the board had to assume that responsibility, but we did, of course, with the full knowledge and concurrence of the president as we did this transition from MSC to the local management team. I don't know if that answers your question.
Somehow, it's all right.
Okay. Regarding interference, I wouldn't call it interference. I think everybody lobbies to get their community connected, which is natural. Even community members lobby to ensure that their communities are connected. But to say political interference in the sense that we are forced to do something, I don't think that's the case, but Tom can speak to it because he deals with that on a daily basis.
During the last election, it was up there.
No, but follow up there, Mr. Captain.
We are not.
Sir, I tell you, TMP we're gonna follow up. He was done. He was done.
Honorable Senator, like Mr. Captain Beverly said, there's no political influence in the distribution. We have a complete list of damaged transformers, and we are replacing them according to age. I said we have a complete list of damaged transformers, and we are replacing them according to age. Once we get transformers, it goes to the oldest one first, before it starts to come down. So we work along with the community with all this standardization, and we move the transformer as we go along as we get transformer available. So there's no political interference with that. People will take advantage when they see the team moving. They put their car behind them, and we can stop them in the moving area. But basically, we do all the technical duties, all the assessment of what sites need to go there at this point in time, because as you are aware, electricity is dynamic, so there's a growth every time we do the area. Once we get all the engineering studies, we move the transformer there accordingly and accordingly as we go along. So the distribution on the load sharing also, on the plane outages and work and everything is based on the nature of the work and the area that has been affected. And we publish that clearly on a week before that this area will be affected, these are the work that will be going on in there, basically.
Just a quick, ask me about the law. I don't know if I should.
Yes, but let the chair just quickly. Mr. Chairman, we want to please take some protocol into consideration. Let's see what happened in your community, and we want to feedback within next weekend. So we will exactly what our situation is.
I think you all heard what I was telling Delhi that he needs to look into it right away.
So we ask, so after saying that they don't follow us.
No, he was trying to answer the mandate issue. And then he can just end up with when power, we heard that you said by December or something that we're going to have power in River G. The lines, I know that the poles have been planted. Well, the poles have been planted and we're told that power from Maryland, coming from the Maryland side, will come to. So that I know the poles are coming and they've been planted and people start dancing already.
Okay, regarding the law, as you know, the act creating LEC was amended by the new electricity law of Liberia. And the new electricity law of Liberia basically allowed for LEC to be the national grid company operator of Liberia, and that LEC is authorized to engage in generation, transmission, and distribution. And that's what the law allows. But furthermore, the law allows for independent power producers to coexist with LEC by obtaining licenses from the regulatory agency. So basically what the law did was to take away the exclusive right, the exclusivity, the monopoly of LEC. But LEC remains the national grid company. That's by law. So it doesn't stop any other company from coming in and seeking a license. But it also does not mean that LEC will just take its assets and give it to everybody else and say, here, go run it for us. So it's a question of how that is managed. But that's what the law provides for.
Mr. Captain, Mr. Gonga, honestly, I didn't want this hearing to appear to be a political thing because we want solution. But I'm constrained to make this follow-up. We passed a budget, gave LEC some money to buy a transformer. When the transformer came, it became presidential project headed by my to make distribution in counties, in cities. Here in Monterey. So you can say no political connection with. I wanted to follow up with Senator Wilson. Transformer is political. My colleague here, Sir Joseph, has called me twice that we got 2 transformers from LEC. You coming for a care in the community? I said no. Most of us need 1 million transformer. If we get 2, we put our face there. All the other community will start asking for the transformer. You know, LEC men, we here for that. I just wanted to follow up. We have passed budget here, and when LEC buy the transformer, it becomes presidential project. It's political. It needs to stop.
Thank you, Senator. So, Senator Jala, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a long day and a hard day. My first question or concern pick up from Senator Brown, who has left. When you were talking about the 3 companies that were selected, that's my concern. How are the 3 companies selected? Who are they? And what is their business? What is the business plan that was used to select them? Is it a form of oligopoly? So that would be my first concern. The second concern is that the team lineup. May I ask the competence of the team? Who is the hiring one among you? Or who is the sound-bodied among you? Because we just rejected somebody today for not having a degree in the area of control. So that would be the second part. Then the third concern is, I'd like to ask Honorable Captain, because Senator Wilson was talking about appointment issue and liberalization issue. The last time you were nominated as Foreign Minister, your citizenship came into question by the Senate, but it was glossed over and continued. Where are we? Have you taken the right step on the citizenship question? Because it was order.
Yes.
All right, are you to your order?
Yeah, order.
All right, they don't hear that. How are you?
Yeah, order on that one.
Now we have new nationality law.
You get past nationality law. Order, yeah. And order sustain, eh? Yeah, leader question.
Okay, so the 2 questions could be addressed, and the third one left for another day.
Thank you. So, the question I have to do with LEC now, can you answer, please?
Senator Jala, I'm not sure which 3 companies you are referring to. I did not indicate that we had selected 3 companies to do anything. Maybe. No, I said that we agreed that we will issue an expression of interest to get companies that are interested in importing meters into Liberia. And we will develop the criteria for that. It will have to do with their financial capacity. It will have to do with them meeting compliance standards that we have and so forth. That will be developed. So I was speaking with regards to intent. but we have not selected 3 companies. Regarding competence, as I indicated earlier, all of the counterparts that we have were thoroughly vetted through a very competitive process, and they were mentored over the period of the management service contract. So that process went on, and they were selected based on their qualification to do the job, to perform the jobs that they were assigned.
Thank you. So we have 2 more senators, Senator Nathans and the chair, and we close.
Don't lie about either.
I think you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really don't have much to contribute to this conversation because it will take some time for Bapu to feel the real effect of LEC currently. But my concern, Honorable Captain, has to do with the law that was passed to minimize losses on the LEC operation, the power theft law. I think your first test of taking someone to court relative to power theft gave you a very bad experience about the importance of the law, because you did not win that case, and so you are of the view that the law is not useful. But I think the legislature, and I don't know what the origin of this law was, whether it's an executive bill or it was something that was developed by the legislature. If it was an executive bill that was brought to the legislature, I think the executive needs to go back on the table to see how this law can benefit LEC. Other than that, then it should be repealed and scrap out of the books completely, so that we will not have the belief that there is a power theft law and then the LEC just set it aside and afraid to use it. So I would want, if you can take it back to your board and management team and see whether you can review it and bring us an amended version that will benefit the operation of LEC to reduce power theft. Theft is just not good. And it's not good to violate the laws if there's law on the books. Then second, I don't know, and I think we need to give chance to the team, because the team that was here, the foreign team that was there just left, I think in July. And so you have been there for a limited time. I think we need to give time to all of you to see whether you will stand the test of time. And I think, Honorable Captain, you are a man of